Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there. Welcome to the show. It's the 18th of August. It's a Thursday. And I'm okay, as it turns out. I finally, after, feeling lousy and getting, all these negative at-home COVID tests, a friend suggested I go get a PCR test. Is that what they're called? Yeah. And I did. And negative. It's amazing how much better I feel immediately. I mean, truly. The other reason is I had a procedure scheduled for tomorrow, and I was thinking, oh no, if I have COVID, I'm not going to be able to do it, and then I'll have to reschedule, and it's already been too late. So that's now on, which is why I'm unfortunately looking at a booklet just out of my, actually I have to turn my head, but I'll give you the title. Your Colonoscopy Prep Guide. So you can tell what kind of a day I'm going to have. Anyway, I don't have COVID, and I get to have a colonoscopy tomorrow. Life is good. Life is good. Beautiful day. All righty, so I've been through the sleeping spiders. I don't think I'm ever going to get to the dreaming spiders. I didn't even know they slept, let alone dreamt. But there's something else. Maybe we'll get to it, but there's something else that I've been wanting to share with you. And rather than do what I so often do, which is, paraphrase, cherry pick a word or two or a phrase or two from some piece that I really thought was good. I'm just going to read this baby. And I was thinking, well, that's not what a show is supposed to be. You're not supposed to read things to them. And then I remembered that no greater a talk show host and storyteller than Doug Hurst, blessed memory, would on occasion just flat out read something to his audience that he figured he wasn't going to do any better, and in fact probably do worse, and so he just gave it to you. And for those of you who already read it, I'm sorry, but here it comes. It, to me, is on the most important subject that we rarely can do a show without encountering. It's about the fear of what is happening to our country and the very real fear of violence. And it is written by Tom Nichols, who writes for The Atlantic. So here it goes. And I will really, you know what? Help me here. Well, there's nothing you can do. I do not want to interrupt him by, inserting my own thoughts. Please don't. Just read it. Here we go. Civil war is among the many terms we now use too easily. The American Civil War was a bloodbath driven by the inevitable confrontation between the Union and the organized forces of sedition and slavery. But at least the Civil War was about something. Compared with the bizarre ideas and half-baked wackiness that now infest American political life. The arguments between the North and the South in the Civil War look like a deep treatise on government. The United States now faces a different kind of violence from people who believe in nothing, or at least nothing real. We do not risk the creation of organized armies and militias in Virginia or Louisiana or Alabama marching on federal institutions. Instead, all of us face random threats and unpredictable dangers from people among us who spend too much time watching TV and plunging down internet rabbit holes. These people, acting individually or in small groups, will be led not by rebel generals, but by narcissistic wannabe heroes. And they will be egged on by cowards and instigators who will inflame them from the safety of a television or radio studio or from behind the shield of elected office. Occasionally, they will congeal into a mob, as they did on January 6th. There is no single principle that unites these Americans in their violence against their fellow citizens. They will tell you that they are for liberty and freedom, but these are merely code words for personal grudges, racial and class resentments, and a generalized paranoia that dark forces are manipulating their lives. These are not people who are going to take up the flag of a state or of a deeper cause. They have already taken up the flag of a failed president, and their causes are a farrago of conspiracy theories and pulpy science fiction plots. What makes this situation worse is that there is no remedy for it. When people are driven by fantasies, by resentment, by an internalized sense of inferiority, there is no redemption in anything. Winning elections, burning effigies, even shooting at other citizens does not soothe their anger, but instead deepens the spiritual and moral void that haunts them. Donald Trump is central to this fraying of political sanity because he has done one thing for such people that no one else could do. He has made their lives interesting. He has made them feel important. He has taken their itching frustrations about the unfairness of life and created a morality play around them and cast himself as the central character. Trump, to his supporters, is the avenging angel who is going to lay waste to the elites, the smarty pants and the do-gooders, the godless and the smug, the satisfied and the comfortable. I spoke with one of the original Never Trumpers over the weekend, a man who has lost friends and family because of his opposition to Trump. And he told me that one of the most unsettling things to him is that these same pro-Trump family and friends now say that they believe that Trump broke the law. They don't care. They see Trump and his crusade, their crusade against evil, the drama that gives their lives meaning, is more important than the law. Some of these people are ready to snap and to resort to violence. Navy veteran in Ohio was killed in the standoffs last week after he attacked a Cincinnati FBI office. A man in Pennsylvania was arrested and charged yesterday for threatening to slaughter federal agents, whom he called police state scum. But that doesn't stop charlatans and con artists from throwing matches at the fuses every day, because those hucksters, too, have decided that living a normal life and working a straight job is for saps. They will gladly risk the occasional explosion here and there if it means living the good life off of donations and purchases from their marks. When enough Americans decide that a cult of personality matters more than a commitment to democracy, we risk becoming a lawless autocracy. That is why we must continue to demand that Trump and his enablers face the consequences of their actions. To cave in the face of threats means the end of democracy. And it would not, in any event, mollify those among our fellow citizens who have chosen to discard the Constitution so they can keep mainlining jolts of drama from morning till night. We are going to be living in this era of political violence for the foreseeable future. All any of us can do is continue among our friends and family and neighbors to say and defend what is right in the face of lies and delusions. I thought that was well said. Tom Nichols, The Atlantic. So, there is no escaping it. It is our new normal. It is the world we are going to inhabit, and it is a fight we cannot shirk. It's a fight we did not ask for. And as you know, one cannot read the paper, watch. I, by the way, decided that I have to watch at least a half hour. Told myself this yesterday. I have to watch at least a half hour. Excuse me. I have to watch at least a half hour of cable news a day or maybe not exactly a half hour, but I have to check in to see what the story is, the narrative is that people are taking in. So there's that. But this, this sort of underlying thuggery that is part of this new normal is really, is popping up in strange places. I told you yesterday, in disparate places, I should say, about an entire elections office in a county in Texas that has quit. This is, 80 some days out from an election, and they quit because they're scared. And they're scared because they've gotten death threats. And they've been stalked. And it ain't worth it to them. And then I saw yesterday a thing about the fact that the largest pediatric hospital in New England, which happens to be Boston Children's Hospital, is now spending a lot of energy fighting off what they call a torrent of threats and harassment, targeting members of their staff who treat transgender patients. This children's hospital has asked law enforcement in Boston for help in protecting its employees and its patients after facing just, as they said, a torrent of harassing emails, phone calls, threats of violence, and on and on. And it all began last week after certain of these loathsome Twitter accounts that the delusional frequent circulated some bizarre thing about what the hospital was doing to children coming there for transgender care. This is apparently it's the first pediatric and adolescent transgender health program in the United States, and it specializes in treating young people who suffer from this gender dysphoria, that who they feel they are does not align with the body they've been born with. So the Boston police are now actively safeguarding this hospital and some of its employees, and they have opened an investigation. But this is the atmosphere that we live in now, and it will be visited upon Americans just trying to do their work. If their work is judged by these crazies and thugs to be, well, you know what? Let me quote the work of Satan. Let me quote something that Steve Bannon wrote. It's just mind-blowing. So here's a guy who, was the so-called genius behind Trump for a period there. He, like Trump, is this narcissistic grifter. And now he has a podcast or something that, he has a big following. He was pardoned by Trump, but he faces additional legal jeopardy. He is, as I'm sure we will all agree, a really bad guy. He apparently has taken some interest in the senatorial contest here in Pennsylvania. And this is one thing he put out on that. And this is the kind of stuff that the people we're talking about, the brown shirts, the Republican brown shirts, the thugs, the crazies, and the people who are determined to bring havoc and autocracy and theocracy to our country. This is the kind of thing they swallow whole. So here it is. Steve Bannon posted this, I guess, yesterday. Is John Fetterman satanic? His look, his vibe, his associations. Has there been anyone in the history of the country that exudes more just pure evil than this guy? The citizens of Pennsylvania need to ask themselves, do we want someone who hangs with satanic groomers to represent us in the U.S. Senate? It's this over the top, and and just that screed hitting the right person at the right time, or the wrong person at the wrong time, can result in attempted violence toward this satanic groomer who is about as evil, apparently, as pure evil as any in American history, according to Steve Bannon, who is not obviously engaging in hyperbole. Could God in heaven? So this is the world that we live in. And this is the world we will inhabit for some time. Moving to Pittsburgh City paper, they note that this rally tomorrow, late afternoon, bringing in these two Christian nationalist, white racist Republican I'm sorry. This is what happens when somebody sends me something, and I'm sorry, my head went. Mastriano and DeSantis tomorrow here. This is, I want you to know, it is an appearance, it is a rally that has caused a great deal of concern in the Jewish community here. And I have never seen the level of political action and organizing that it has been going on in the last few weeks in Pittsburgh, and I would say Pennsylvania's Jewish community, because I, as a member of it, we see these guys as a clear and present danger. So petitions are circulating. I saw that in today's Post-Gazette. Miri Rabinowitz, who was widowed by the anti-Semite who killed her wondrous husband, and others at Tree of Life, the guy who posted on the website that Mastriano went to and where he enjoys so much support, Gab, that Mary, who's a very private person, felt the need to write a piece that the Post-Gazette printed today. And I would say that she is a person who I know, but I don't think of her as a political activist. But her life was totally blown apart by that horrific event and attack. And she sees Mastriano and DeSantis and all of his supporters as a true danger. And so a number of faith leaders in Pittsburgh got together to denounce this rally. And it is, since what happened at Tree of Life, the religious community in Pittsburgh has pulled together in just a wonderful way. And so others, Christian, Muslim, have all come out and spoken of the danger of that is represented by Mastriano. One who is from the Islamic Center here is quoted in the City Paper piece as saying that Mastriano and DeSantis represent a direct threat to the American Islamic community. And he said, I can see the way some of us left our own countries because they took a turn into nationalism or other forms of hate. And that's why we came here, to escape that persecution. The idea that one religion is superior to another should be excluded in Pennsylvania. But that's what Mastriano is peddling, and that's what the current iteration of the Republican Party and Ron DeSantis and so many others are peddling. It is unabashed Christian nationalism, white Christian nationalism. And if you are somebody who doesn't fit into that, you are, the life you know is truly endangered by these people and those who follow them. Ask Mary Rabinowitz. Okay. You know what? I think I might get to dreaming. I might get to dreaming spiders today. I don't know. I do have to wait. I have a few other things that I just need to get off my chest. This case, you see the Florida case, I just have to say, beyond belief, that a Florida court ruled that a 16-year-old girl, is not, quote, sufficiently mature to decide to make a decision about whether or not to have an abortion. And this despite the fact that this child has the support of her adult guardian. And she told the court, she's pregnant. She said, I'm not ready to have a baby. Tough, said the court. You're too immature to make that decision, but apparently not immature to carry this pregnancy to term and become a mother. Insane. This is insanity. I mean, she pleaded her case. She made a good case. She says, I'm still in school. I don't have a job. The father of the child is in no position to assist me. She had to go to court to get permission. Parentless, lives with a relative as an appointed guardian. Is working toward a GED through a special program that supports young girls who have experienced trauma. And so the appeals court decided to further traumatize her. And the cruelty of these courts and the Republicans in state governments continues apace. So instead of listening to this child, looking at her life, her circumstances, her reality, they force her to give birth and tell her she's not mature enough to make these choices on her own. Incredible. I mean, just incredible. And it'll keep coming. Oh gosh, here's something about bees I meant to share with you. The surprisingly rich inner world of bees. And here to me is like the great escape. When our human world becomes too much. Nature, that we have done such harm to, nature holds out a lifeline to us. Nature is so filled with fascinating stuff that we don't know and we don't appreciate. I was thinking I could spend the rest of my time, my life, just starting to learn everything I could about, and fill in the blank, birds. Because I put a bird feeder on my window in my bedroom, and I watch birds now all the time, and I start wondering about certain behaviors, and that that curiosity then makes you think, I could. Yeah, you just want to know more. Then you read this article about spiders dreaming or bees with full consciousnesses. And we have the gall and temerity to somehow think that all of this life around us is not as rich as our own. I think the fact that we have always discounted it, that it is beneath us, we are superior to it, I think is, it's one of those sort of original sins that has then created so much of our bad behavior. Jonathan is reminding us, and thank you for this. I saw that there is a special that is airing this Sunday at 9 p.m. on CNN, specifically about the rising anti-Semitism in the country. But as the faith leaders here would tell you, and as anyone who knows history will tell you, rising anti-Semitism goes along with rising anti-Islamism and rising racism and rising misogyny, and all of it is rising. It's all of a piece. It all comes from the same place. Speaking, before I get to the insects, I mean, I remember bringing this to your attention some time ago, about how this Harvard professor, he's a geneticist, and he founded a company called Colossal. It's a genetic engineering company, and how the intent was to bring back extinct species. Why can't I say that all of a sudden today? And I remember at the time saying, are these people out of their cotton picking mind? We don't need to bring back, we already did those guys in. How about if we try to save the ones that are on the edge right now? That makes more sense to me. To bring back an extinct species is to court a lot of unintended consequences. It's to play God in a repulsive way. And I just read in the New Yorker that they are moving forward. And they intend to create a baby, more than one, woolly mammoth by 2025, guys. That's 3 years from now, US. These jerks, these are the people, these are the size of smarty pants that I so hate. These are the guys who never stop and think that just because they can doesn't mean they should. They are right now reconstructing the DNA of the woolly mammoth. They're going to use CRISPR to combine it with the DNA of an Asian elephant. They're going to make themselves an embryo. They're going to implant it in an Asian elephant. And they're going to what they call de-extinct the species. Stop and think. Think of the reality of that. Okay. So a little baby woolly mammoth, an embryo, and then it's born by this Asian elephant. And there's this little baby woolly mammoth, the first in thousands upon thousands of years. And what the hell is that poor little being supposed to do? Orphaned, motherless, alone, no big mommy woolly mammoth to show it how to be a woolly mammoth. That alone should tell you something's wrong here. And as if that's not enough, then I see, I think it was yesterday, in The Guardian, that this same crowd, colossal, is now talking to scientists in Australia. And they're doing the same thing with the Tasmanian tiger. It looks like a strange kind of a dog with like stripes on it. It's also called a thylacine. And the last one was finished off in the 1930s by humans. We did it. And they're going to do the same thing to this animal, this extinct animal. Colossal's chief executive and founder believes it is possible to do this in less than 6 years. I think it's highly probable this could be the first animal we de-extinct. And why? Unbelievable. I mean, he goes on about why it should. I don't want to give him the benefit of the doubt or the time. I just find it repulsive. Just repulsive. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. This is me being disorganized. If I may double back. Again, also the New Yorker. a very long piece that I have not finished. It appears I've lost part of it. But it is about this new kind of Republican Party. And this article focused mostly on Ohio. What happens when a state becomes, totally governed, the state itself, by these kind of new Republicans? What happens? Well, as it begins to happen, they do their gerrymandering, which creates a situation where they end up with these super majorities. That's what's happening in Pennsylvania as well. And so they have actually veto-proof majorities. So even though they have a Republican governor, if the Republican governor is not quite as crazed, and I don't think he is, as a lot of members of the legislature, he can try to veto some of their craziness, but they now can override it. So it's as if there's no executive, there's no nothing. It's just these just incredibly powerful lunatics who have taken over in Ohio. I mean, in that whole big state, there are only 35 Democrats in the lower house and 8 Democrats in their Senate. And one of those senators is also, this is one of the people in the assembly. He happens to be a Jew, and one of only 2 Jews. Because again, Jews aren't particularly welcome in this world. So Ohio is home to a lot of Jewish people, but the Ohio legislature is not representative of that reality. So this guy's name is Representative Casey Weinstein, and he's from a swing district between Cleveland and Akron. And on a January morning of this year, it was a Sunday, he and his wife awoke to find some 30 vehicles blocking the entrance to his driveway and a whole bunch of people outside carrying signs, one of which said, "Kneel for the cross." Now, this guy with his young children in the house was looking out, and obviously this is, again, this is intimidation. This is like burning a cross. This is you telling a Jewish family to kneel for the cross. And he assumed it was, one of the Trump-related lunatic groups. And then he found out it wasn't. This was from a church. It was a church-sponsored, totally organized trip. Because here's another thing we've got to deal with. A lot of churches are part of this airy craziness. And some are operating, well, the article says, basically as militias. Operating as militias. Tax-free militias. And they are weaponizing Christianity. And so this poor guy who's serving one of the few Democrats and definitely one of the few Jews in the legislature in Ohio ends up with these crazy people intimidating him outside his home. That was in January. In March, his antenna went because one of his cohorts on the other side of the aisle had introduced a bill that would prohibit public school teachers in Ohio from teaching what the bill called divisive concepts. You know what that would be, right? That would be like what they call critical race theory, which is not being taught in any Ohio schools. But a divisive concept also includes, well, I don't know, slavery, race, Vietnam. And the woman behind this bill, Sarah Fowler Arthur, when asked by a reporter for a Cleveland television station to give an example of what she intends, and he says, "Well, you have to teach both sides." And she even offered up the Holocaust as an example. I will now quote her. "You should talk about these atrocities that have happened in history, but you also do have an obligation to point out the value that each individual brings to the table. So students should consider the Holocaust also from the perspective of a German soldier." Okay. It will not surprise you to hear that before these lunatics took over Ohio's legislature, the state's public schooling was judged to be the 5th best in the nation. And that was by education publication, Education Week. That was back in 2010 when the crazies hadn't taken over. Okay. Ohio had an public education system that was 5th best in the country. Guess where it is now? 31st and falling. And last year, the FBI said that public corruption cases in Ohio were the worst in the country. In the past 5 years, the state has had 5 speakers of the House because 2 were forced out as a result of the biggest bribery scandals in Ohio's history. And the people in control are crooks, crazies, haters. Incredible. So let's get to spiders. A new study from German, Italian, and American researchers says that there is a species of jumping spider that quite clearly has vivid dreams. How the hell would you know? Well, they go on to tell you. Because how our sleeping bodies can twitch and move. Those twitchies and moving things happen during REM, the rapid eye movement sleep, that is the deepest sleep, that is dream sleep. And if you don't get enough REM sleep, you're a tired person, and you're probably getting, you might get so screwed up you'll end up becoming a Republican or something. You ain't thinking clearly anymore. But these fighters clearly engage in REM sleep. And don't ask me, really, they go into the science of how they know it. And there's a lot of questions they don't answer. So they're saying, look, we'll call it, we know this, it is REM sleep-like. And people who study arachnids are just blown away by it. The fact is, we know very little about REM sleep in insects, let alone mammals, let alone birds. So I didn't even know that insects slept. I thought maybe they rested. I didn't even know if they slept. And they say here that if these spiders do enter into REM sleep, that what they would be doing in it probably is consolidating memories or behavior patterns. And it's already known that some of these jumping spiders have sophisticated cognitive abilities. And they make complicated decisions. See, this is why we don't give these living things that we live among, we don't give them respect. Here's one of the researchers. They're not little robots that go out and attack anything they see. There's a lot that goes on in those brains. They're making decisions all the time. Just so you know. And then, my brother sent me this because when he was in high school, he went to some special program at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, high school program, and he studied bees. And boy, he came back from that thing so just beside himself with what he had learned. And to this day, he remains blown away by it. And there was an amazing piece in the Washington Post that he sent me called "The Consciousness of Bees," and it is mind blowing. Bees are smart. They're smarter than Trump voters. They memorize. They memorize certain flowers. They can even memorize human faces. I kid you not. They can solve problems by thinking them out rather than by trial and error. They also can learn to use tools. And all of this is a result of them being studied. I mean, they put them through paces, and there's no other explanation than that I just said, that they are capable of. And as usual, if we acknowledge this, the possibility of true sentience in bees, in spiders, in mammals and birds, if we do, this is why we haven't been willing to, it raises so many ethical questions about their conservation, about how we treat them, about research we do. And this idea that we were generally taught that these social insects like ants and bees are wholly governed by instinct and there is no sense of the individual. That's not true. It's not true. There is growing and significant evidence that bees, for instance, have an inner world individually of thought. And it's amazing to see how the scientists figure out how to test, the bees, how to reward them, how to see if they can, and they do. And what they find is that bees can count, essentially. And they are flexible in accessing memory. Can you imagine having a job where you work with bees and train them to do certain things and then watch as you introduce a slight variation and then see how they respond to that? Wow. I remember my brother, when he came back when he was in high school, just freaking out about how the bees come back to the hive and they do these amazing dances, essentially. And in the dance, they're telling the other bees where the flowers are, how far away, blah, blah, blah. Bees can picture things in their heads. Bees can solve problems in a manner that indicates they understand the desired goal they're working toward. And researchers have also found evidence of states that we would call it emotional. We would call it emotional. If we were dealing with horses or dogs or something, we'd say, look, they've got emotion. And they found that bees can feel optimism. How do they do this? I don't know what's more or negative emotions, pessimism. I'm just going to read you the last paragraph and then I'll say goodbye. The observation that bees are most likely sentient has important ethical implications. It's well known that many species are threatened by pesticides and wide-scale habitat loss, and that this spells trouble because we need these bees to pollinate our crops. But is the utility of bees the only reason they should be protected? No. The insight that bees have a rich inner world and unique perception, and like humans are able to think, enjoy, suffer, commands respect for the diversity of minds in nature. And with this respect comes an obligation to protect the environments that shaped these minds. Common migratory beekeeping practices in industrialized agriculture involve the frequent transport of hives across continents on trailers, which not only spreads disease, but is most likely detrimental to the bees' psychological well-being, weakening their health further. Finally, countless insects are sacrificed annually in research labs and the insect food industry, the methods of which are entirely unregulated. It is plausible that these scientific findings about bees' capacity to think, to suffer, also extend to other insects. And this should be considered in anything we do that has an impact on them. Well, of course, but it won't be. It won't be. All right, so there you go. I thank you very much. I'm going to go read my colonoscopy prep guide, although I already know what it says, and I'm not going to have a great day. Anyway, I'll see you Monday, okay? Have a good weekend.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.